It was bound to happen sooner or later. The relentless march of Rome just couldn't be contained forever. And in 146 BC, the glorious freedom of Greece fell to the might of Rome, turning Greece into Rome's province. What had been coming for almost 2 centuries finally happened. But why did it take so long? How did Rome finally conquer Greece? How does one of the most important civilizations in world history fall like this? Let's find out in today's episode. Who were the Greeks? I know that you all know who they are, but let me remind you anyway. They originated from the region of what is today known as Greece and spread to many regions across the Mediterranean. During the Archaic period, which lasted from the 8th to the 6th century BC, they created many city-states such as Athens, Sparta, Thebes, and Corinth. These city-states would become prominent in the next period known as the Classical period. But during this time, they weren't exactly at peace with each other. They were always fighting over lands and power. But despite their inability to unite against common enemies, they excelled in arts, architecture, philosophy, democracy, and sciences. They also developed the Olympic Games, one of the biggest events in human history. Many empires rose and fell during this time, but the Greeks survived, but not unscathed. In 338 BC, the Macedonian king Philip II defeated the Greeks at the Battle of Chaeronea, subjugating them under his rule. His son, Alexander the Great, would continue his father's legacy, conquering pretty much the entire known world. He even managed to conquer the Persian Empire, something that no other power has ever done before or since. But his empire wouldn't last after his death. It would be divided amongst his generals, creating the Hellenistic period. This period marked the end of classical Greece, and Greece would never be the same again. Their old power was gone. Now they were simply a part of larger empires. And when Rome came along, the Greek city-states weren't able to offer much resistance. First, it was Carthage that threatened the Mediterranean world, but Rome destroyed them. Then came the threat of Mithridates, which Rome also crushed. In both these wars, Greece sided with Rome. At first, it seemed like everything was going according to plan. They got rid of the stronger neighbors, but they still couldn't get rid of the Romans. You see, Rome wasn't satisfied with just being an ally of Greece. They wanted more, much more. And soon enough, they began to show their true colors. Rome was now becoming more and more oppressive towards the Greeks. Tensions began to rise. Rome had taken advantage of the weak Greek city-states and now ruled over all of Greece except for 3, Athens, Sparta, and Chios. But Rome had plans for those two. They sent General Lucius Mummius to finish the job. But Greece refused to accept Roman rule. The Roman Senate didn't like this. They viewed Greece as disobedient and decided to teach them a lesson. In 146 BC, Rome declared war on Greece. With this declaration, the 3 remaining free Greek city-states gathered their armies and prepared to fight. But they knew that they were outnumbered. The Roman army was one of the largest in the ancient world, and there was no way that the Greeks could beat them in a direct confrontation. So they made a plan. The Achaean League, which consisted of most of the Greek city-states, planned to escape the Roman siege by sea, taking their valuables with them. Athens and Sparta were supposed to join them, but they preferred to stay behind and fight, though really, it wasn't because they were loyal to Greece. Athens simply didn't want to submit to Rome, and Sparta didn't want to submit to anyone. While the Greeks were preparing for their escape, the Roman general Titus Quinctius Flamininus arrived. But he didn't engage in battle. Instead, he waited for the Greek navy to leave. Once they did, he attacked and destroyed every single Greek ship in sight. He then returned to the mainland and besieged several Greek cities. But he faced fierce resistance until he reached Corinth. Here, the last stand of Greece took place. It lasted for 6 months, but eventually the Romans won. The Romans entered the city on 146 BC, destroying the temples, palaces, and houses of the Greeks. All that remained were the ruins of the once great civilization. The Roman Senate was pleased. Greece was now officially a part of Rome. In fact, The entire region was made into a province of Rome known as Achaia. But how did Rome conquer Greece? There are many theories about this, but none of them can be proven. First, some historians claim that the Romans used superior tactics and strategy to defeat the Greeks. Others say that the Romans simply had a bigger and stronger military force. However, this isn't entirely true. If we look at the battles that took place between Rome and Greece, we will see that the Romans didn't win every single one. There were defeats and victories on both sides. So what was the real reason? Well, the answer may surprise you. The real reason Rome conquered Greece was because the Greeks helped them. You heard that right. The Greeks literally invited the Romans to come conquer them. Why would they do such a thing? Because they thought that the Romans could help them regain their lost glory. You see, during the Hellenistic period, the Greeks had lost their independence and were now subjects of foreign rulers. This caused them to resent the Macedonians and Ptolemies, but they didn't resent Rome. They saw the Romans as liberators who could help them regain their freedom. This is why when the Romans arrived in Greece, the locals welcomed them with open arms. They thought that the Romans would bring back their lost glory, but they were wrong. Despite this, the Romans still had to put up a fight. It wasn't easy to defeat the Greeks, but they did it anyway. And in the process, they gained a great prize, Greece. It's hard to imagine, but Greece became a province of Rome. Today, when we think of Greece, we think of freedom, democracy, and culture. But for most of its existence, Greece was anything but free. For most of its existence, it was either ruled by foreigners or was a part of a larger empire. When Rome took Greece, it was seen as a great prize. The Romans had always admired the Greek culture and way of life, and now they had it. The Romans loved Greek art, literature, and architecture, and they began to incorporate it into their own culture. Soon, Greek culture was all over the Roman Empire. But it wasn't just Greek culture that Rome gained. They also gained a large and prosperous province. Greece was one of the richest provinces of Rome, and the Romans exploited it for all it was worth. They took the money and used it to build roads, aqueducts, and temples throughout their empire. But Rome didn't just gain a rich province. They also gained a strategic one. Greece was located in a very important part of the Mediterranean. It was close to the Persian Empire and the Egyptian kingdom. This made it a very important province for the Romans. They used it as a base to launch their attacks into the Middle East and Africa. But perhaps the greatest thing that Rome gained from Greece was its people. The Greeks were a very intelligent and inventive people. They had made many great inventions and discoveries, and the Romans were eager to learn from them. The Romans studied Greek science and mathematics and began to use it to improve their own technology. In conclusion, Rome's conquest of Greece was a very important event in history. It marked the end of the Greek world and the beginning of the Roman world. It also marked the beginning of the end for Greece as a civilization. The Romans would eventually destroy Greece, but at least they got to enjoy their culture for a few centuries. Do you think that Rome was right to destroy Greece? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. That's all for today's episode. Thank you for watching. And if you want to support us even further, you can check the links in the description. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more content,